Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. Happy Thursday. It's Thursday. It's almost March, and it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful morning. We have amazing guests for this episode of Cut the Shit, Cue the Genius. Michelle Bruno, Liz Caruso, and myself are ecstatic. We are bringing Kristen and Jay with us to talk about how the heck can we get digital events to be better and not dead. And I said that because Jay is going to prove us wrong when people say virtual is dead.
Yes.
So before we get started, this is going to have to be a super high energy so we can keep up with Jay kind of program. And everybody's going to have to chime in on the chat. You're going to have to tell us all the questions that you are trying to get answered, so you can go back to your teams and your CXOs and say, what the hell? How come we're not doing everything like Kristen and Jay said that we should do? All right. So Kristen, before we get started, tell us your journey within this amazing industry that we love and hate at the same time.
Wow, what an intro. I'll also say today is leap year, leap day, which is every, 4 years or so, you get an extra day in life. I mean, I think that's pretty damn cool.
Damn cool, right?
It's so cool. Well, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation, Dahlia, Michelle, and Liz, and to be here with Jay, not only, my partner, but also a friend of mine in the industry. And, we're so pumped to be here today. I mean, where do I start in the industry?
Probably go back.
I actually started, my love for events at my university. Not many people know this, but I ran the largest dance marathon at University of Connecticut, which benefited the Children's Miracle Network. And I ran the registration, the attendees. Back in the day, we barely had donation platforms. And this was almost 20 years ago, which is kind of wild. So when I was a part of that, I really just found my love for events and, found Cvent next, which I was one of their first enterprise sales folks over there, was there through all the rides of 5 years, and then kind of ventured onto the partner side, was at 2 agencies leading the digital side. And now, from Hopin to the acquisition of RingCentral, I really love this industry, and I can't get rid of it. So
well, I think you're in it. I say it's like the song Hotel California. You can check in, you can never check out. So
exactly.
You're in it for life, no matter which side you're on. So
well, the thing is, for me, is there's such great people in this industry, and the people are very passionate about what they do. And, if you're not, then people don't last in this industry. The event and marketing industry is just so exciting. It's always creative, fresh thinkers. And I think that's why I just can't shake it.
Well, and this is how you gravitate to like amazing people like Jay, because I only know Jay from last year, seeing him and taking a selfie because it was like a celebrity sighting.
Oh, come on
being
now.
on it. Look at, I need to make him blush for a second.
Yeah, right.
Mission accomplished. But also because of guru conferences. And I mean, that is like the epic example. So Jay Schwadelson, did I get it?
Good enough. I can't do any better, so that was pretty good. It's a rough name. So what? My journey? How did I get here? Is that the question?
Yeah.
So I'll try not to. So I've had an agency called Outcome Media for about 25 years, a marketing agency, and we're about 100 or so people down here in South Florida. And for my entire professional life, I've been attending conferences, exhibiting conferences, sponsoring conferences, in-person ones, and then virtual ones. And coming out of COVID, I was like, wow, virtual events really, they suck. They're epically boring. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And so I decided to add more stress to my life. I started up another company called Guru Events. And the premise was, we're going to try to put on the world's largest marketing conferences for everybody. And we're going to do everything we can to do it differently, to make it more engaging, more fun, to educate people on whatever the marketing tactic is, whether it's email or whatever, but simultaneously to prove that virtual events can be awesome. And that's kind of like one of my missions in life. So I'm excited to be here. Kristen is amazing. You all are amazing. So this is great.
Oh,
It's
you're the
not the end of the show. You say that at the end of the show.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
All right. So let's talk about, what is the secret sauce? Like you've been doing the digital events for how many years now?
This is going to be our third year putting on large scale virtual conferences.
So it's post Corona coaster kind of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us, what are the ingredients? Like what makes it tick with people? Because Guru, last year, I think you clocked like 20,000 registrants.
We did. Yeah, totally.
There's people saying, holy shit, right now. We can barely get 20.
Yeah, and I think in general, I think I got lucky that I didn't grow up in the event space because I didn't follow a certain mold, right? And I think the mistake that most event marketers make is they try to say, oh, what did we do live? Let's try to replicate that virtually.
Yeah.
And that's a recipe for total failure. So you have to first come at it with how we're going to make this, put aside whatever the content is. Let's say you're doing an event on fintech. Let's say you're doing one on direct mail. Let's say you're doing one on HR. It doesn't matter the topic. It's what you're surrounding it with is going to get people to want to show up, right? So you need to have content in there that's fun, that's engaging. I mean, we had live DJs and we had TikTok dancers and we had chaos and we had, all sorts of trivia contests. So you need to have it, make it fun. And then the other thing is understanding how people function online, which is speed. Our sessions, for example, are 25 minutes long with an 8-minute Q&A. That's it, right? We also eliminated, ironically, because we're sort of on a panel now, almost all panels. Because I think panels virtually, a lot of times it doesn't resonate as much with the audience. So you have to think about how people consume the content. You have to make it exciting and just bring that energy. And that's what we try to do. I think that's why it resonates.
Cool.
Someone is asking, and this is one of the questions that I wanted to talk about because I hear all the time, and honestly, many of our clients are like, no, we're not doing digital. It's too much work. It's too much money. We're not adding that component. I feel like we're seeing that decline in digital conferences. Do you think that's the case? And how has it evolved after COVID? Everyone was obviously doing virtual in 2020. It seems like it's dropped off a lot, but to your point, I don't think in any way it needs to be. But what are you guys seeing there? Either one of you?
Yeah, I'll go first and then Jay, you can speak to this. I mean, I think across the board, what happened was everyone went through COVID. We all were through that ride. And then, I hate saying those words, but, we kind of immediately went back to in person because it's innate. We love human connection. We need to be together, but sometimes being together doesn't mean physically together. Some of my friends, we were still together through FaceTime throughout all of those times. And I think we raced back to the in-person because in the industry, that's what we knew. And then we kind of forgot what we were doing in those times that actually make events great. And what we're seeing right now is while everyone went back to the in-person, and that's what we've been supporting with customers and do support to this day. And I do, thrive on that because I'm an extrovert as well. I think what we're also seeing is there's new event marketing strategists saying, wait a second, this helped expand our reach. This also helped customers who literally either physically are unable to travel accessibility wise, or they don't have budget to travel. And
they don't want to.
Yeah. And they need to, no, but they need to connect with those people. I mean, even this year, I was invited to a lot of conferences this year to speak or attend, and I just physically can't do it. And I'm choosing my family and I'm choosing other options, but I said, I will be happy to do it virtually if you have an option for me. So I do think it's changing in different ways. And I do think it's kind of a reemergence over this last year of what it means to be virtual. So I'm seeing actually a heightened increase also due to the demographics coming into the industry, such as the TikTokers, as Jay just mentioned.
Yeah. And I think in general, I think the mistake also is, of course, in-person's back, right? Everyone's going to in-person. We don't have to deal with the pandemic. That's awesome.
Totally.
But it's not this, do I do in-person or do I do virtual? It's not either or. They're mutually exclusive, right? And I think the problem now is for people that have in-person, which is great, what they're doing is they're going to say, and we have an online component where you could see some of the sessions. Well, that's the worst experience of all time, right? Because it's not, you're doing it as an add-on. It's not a priority. Those people aren't a priority. And so if you're going to have it as an add-on, you need to make sure that experience is amazing,
Bingo.
right? And you should think about virtual conferences are a separate thing. It's the best place to test for an event. We have a lot of association clients, and they make the mistake of, we have a new idea for an event, an in-person event. They spend a boatload of money. They roll the dice, and it either goes well or doesn't go well, and that's ridiculous. Put on an awesome virtual event first on that topic, see if it resonates, and if you want to take it in person, go for it. But treat virtual events as their own thing, because they're their own experience.
Yeah, they totally are. I'm a believer in a new KPI that I made up. So I make up a lot of stuff, but my KPI is the hug factor. So we post-Corona Coaster, we came back to face-to-face meetings, and you measure the hug factor. People wanted to hug people that they stalked on social media or met on social media, like my OMG moment with Jay, for example, at Inbound last year, or people that they haven't seen for a while. And I do believe that in 2024 onwards, that hug factor is slowly decreasing. Right. So, it's a value. It truly is, and I honestly think there are ways where you can elevate the hug factor and the networking and the relationships on the virtual side, and actually even sustain it like in different ways, in like creative ways, longer than an arrival and a departure date of an event. So I'm sticking to my new KPI. That's it.
Love
Yeah.
it.
And I think what's you hit an interesting point too, Dahlia. I think what's also interesting is the creative ways, and Jay and I talk about this all the time. He's like, I have this idea, Kristen, like, let's talk about it. And I'm like, cool, let's figure it out together. And like, how can we help you?
Yes.
And I think, that's missing from this. Like he's had creative ideas regarding giving back in events, sustainability. Like there's just so many reasons of how you can do this, and that makes people feel good. So I know, Jay, you and I have talked about so many creative things that you've done. So I'd love the audience to hear them, because you've said it to me all the time, and I love everyone else to hear them too.
Yeah, I feel bad. I'm always hitting you with, I have the most ridiculous
I love it though.
idea. First of all, I'll tell you right now, I shouldn't even be sharing this, but we're working on, for this year's event, we have a theme for our event. We decide every year to have a theme. So this year we're having a 1980s theme. Okay. And so we're going to do a live costume contest where everyone's going to submit their 80s costume. We're going to have upvoting somehow on the platform. We are going to have upvoting. And so I was reaching out to my team. I'm like, can we get in contact with Mr. T, because he needs to be the judge for our costume contest? And it was like, is that did you get hacked? Like, who writes that? So we're literally trying to find Mr. T. But anyway, if you have any connections, let me know. But in terms of giving back, we did something that's been working really, really well. And I think a lot of times at virtual events, especially if you're a sponsor or whatever, you have an exhibit hall booth. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. Generally speaking, those virtual exhibit halls are rough to get a lot of traction in. They just are, right? So we said, because I've always been a sponsor my whole life, how can we get people to really engage with our sponsors and all this stuff? And so what we've done, which I think has been a really good recipe for other people to consider, which is we take these, we call them networking rooms. We have like maybe 5 networking rooms, and each networking room is a different topic of whatever's going on in the conference. And we pause the entire conference. We say, all right, everybody, now it's time to go to a networking room, which is really just like an exhibit hall booth, really. And we say, everyone go and pick one. But what we tell them is, for every 10 minutes, if you spend 10 minutes in any networking room, Guru Events, my organization, is going to donate $5. And we have a partnership with the American Cancer Society. If you spend 10 minutes in any of the networking rooms, and we pause the event and we announce it, we do an alert, and instantly thousands of people go to the networking rooms. And we have been sending thousands and thousands of dollars to American Cancer Society, and our sponsors are thrilled because they get the engagement, the activity. There are things that you can do to get people excited if you just take a minute and say, how can we kind of play this differently? You can't just have an exhibit hall and say, please go. Nobody's going to go.
So true.
That's awesome. So Jay, before we continue, Jill and Kisha actually have a lead to Mr. T for you.
This is amazing. This is networking right here. This is what I'm talking about.
So just like we're helping you out here. All right. So we're just
amazing.
So Bruno, you had a question for Jay.
I have a ton of questions, but first of all, I cannot stand breakout rooms personally.
Yeah.
It's just too stark of a transition for me to
Yeah.
go from like, I'm really into this content, and then all of a sudden, okay, run into this room and meet 20 strangers and try and do a conversation. I hate that. But what would put me in there is an incentive like that. That's the first thing. I wanted to ask you, so it sounds like your secret sauce is more like entertainment versus typical B2B behavior and content and emulation of live events. And a lot of trade associations are not comfortable with that. They think that is the devil in terms of defying their association policies around doing too much fun stuff, because then maybe they're not giving value to their members, whatever. So I wanted both of you to speak to this fun factor being integral to the success of digital events now, and how to kind of convert the unconverted, the unschooled, over to that. But the bigger question than that for me is, okay, we can have fun, but does it convert? At the end of the day, you get 20,000 leads or whatever you're after, or are people just entertained and then they go, hey, that was great, I'm going to go do my laundry now?
Chris,
Yeah.
I'll toss to you first, and then I'll jump in.
I will say that, sometimes we forget what we've done in the in-person environment, because the fun factor, regardless if, I work with pharmaceutical clients and other customers that do, physical events, they do virtual events, but when they go to the digital side, they almost forget what makes it still fun. What I mean by that is you don't have to overdo it to make it fun. Like when you enter into a conference room, there's music playing, usually from the production crew. And then usually all the digital events that I've attended recently, like we had one, on this little podcast, but, for other events, they just, hey guys, we're doing a content today, blah, blah, blah. And it's very robotic. Why are we forgetting that? Why are we forgetting people like to have some fun in their day when they're joining, a session? And that's small. That's a small example of just incorporating music into people's, it doesn't have to be this, different things and all the creativeness that Jay does for his audience. But if you're in fintech, if you're in a pharmaceutical, there are things you can do. I also think the other piece of this is in the in-person as well. There was all these types of unique, trivia, or where it's a question or Q&A and bringing up people to the screen. If you have the right technology, you can do that still today. Raising your hands and getting people on the stage and incorporating that engagement from an actual, polling Q&A and the production aspect. There's production tools today in event software that can help with this. So I don't understand why people are forgetting that you can do some of those things and really level up the excitement. I think what you're saying about the ROI, I'll do the second half of the question too, is I'm actually seeing greater ROI because the people who are actually coming to these events really want to hear the content. And they're actually, I would say that even in the in-person before the pandemic, just because you're at an event doesn't mean, and you get 50 scans, 100 scans, I've received less quality because there's stop-bys and they're just checking out my booth. And I would go back as a sponsor, take it to my team, and one lead would convert. Is that actual ROI or is that brand awareness? So those things should be tracked differently. So anyway, I can talk about this topic all day, but I know, Jay, you probably have some thoughts here as well, pretty similarly.
Well, first off, you have to have great content or whatever the topic is, right? You can't have second-rate speakers. You have to have really important information to share. But surrounding that, this idea of edutainment is everything. I mean, as AI develops more, right, what's going to happen is there's going to be more of a sterile environment because there's going to be so much content that's just generic. So in order to really get engagement, you're going to have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you can't create a little bit of fun, then you just go out of business. I don't care what industry you're in. I don't care if you're in the government sector or whatever, regulated, whatever. You have to get people to be excited. We are people, right? And you could do little things that you talk about music. You go to some conferences and you hear background music, and it's like, oh my God, I can't take it. All you need to do, if you go and you register with BMI, and I don't work for BMI, or an ASCAP, ASCAP, these are the two largest associate groups that you have to sign up with. You can then play real music at your events. Okay. And what we did as an example, leading into our event to get everybody excited, we put up a Spotify playlist that was shareable and you could add to it. And we said, what do you want to hear? And we said, everybody add the music to this Spotify playlist. And we put it out there. And we had hundreds of hours of music. It was the craziest thing. And that Spotify playlist like blew up. But I will tell you, and this is not a commercial for Kristen, but I'm going to do it anyway. It is very, very, very important. And when you're thinking about whatever platform you're going to use, and I use Ring Central, which is Kristen's organization, you need to think about all the crazy things that you want to try, and you want to make sure your platform can do it, right? Because the worst feeling in the world is to have an idea and not be able to do it because you are siphoned off because of the platform that you're on. So kind of like forward think your ideas to make sure you're operating with the right platform.
Well, go ahead. That leads me to a question that I had, because we know that you, Kristen, you worked with Steven and you are now at Ring Central. And this is kind of like the epic event tech question. Is it better to find a platform where they build everything in-house, they buy the products, they bring them in-house? Or is it better to work with someone who's more collaborative, who has all these partnerships? You want to add translation, work with this partner, add that in. I have a feeling I know, but what is both of your perspectives on this and why? Because I know planners are always wondering, is it better? Here's what I want. Is it better to go with a company that built it all themselves, even if, I think the argument is it's not going to be as quickly built and as amazing and cutting edge if it's all in one, or the whole hub and spoke idea?
So I love this question because it's something I'm truly passionate about, and Jay knows exactly where I'm going with this. But I think across the board, I hate the word all in one. I talk about complete for your strategy, because there's so many different platforms out there, and how can you make that complete and comprehensive for your strategy? So in my personal experience, I'm in that all in one camp, complemented with a touch of best of service. And that has not been done in this industry, which I have been fighting against for so long. And now that I'm actually in a role that can make decisions, I'm bringing that to our solutions and to our customers. What I mean by that is you can have the pieces in the all-in-one that really are flexible to any content type and any, event type. But that should be complemented as from a personalization perspective to create, different things and creative thinking. What I'm talking about is this is the reason actually I came to Hopin. Not many people know this, but when I was at Freeman, I led the digital team and I observed 100 different technology partners throughout the pandemic. I reviewed Hopin and I said, I want to work at this company. And I called them. I said, hire me. I said, I love this product. I love where it's going. Ebbs and flows along the way. Last few years, you all know about it. But at the end of the day, I love the architecture because I knew all these platforms. And the biggest thing about it is they had an app store. They had an app store that was not just data integrations. And that app store was revolutionary. It was the first one in the industry. It has 40 plus apps. And Jay has used a lot of them. So Kahoot, Snapbar, and this is low code, no code, which means you don't have to do some complex custom software with an agency in order to have an app that works, which is similar to the Salesforce model, the Google model, the Facebook model of integrating apps. So I'm in the all-in-one camp with complementary best of service. And I have no idea why the industry has waited so long to do creative thinking to complement the experience. So that's been my passion project, more to come this year. But Jay, you probably are the same way.
Oh yeah. The apps are everything. And the key thing about the apps, when you're looking at any platform, whether it's Kristen's or another one, when you are utilizing the apps on your platform to do whatever you want to do they take you off platform? I'm a big believer. If you take people off platform during the event, you lose them. They're gone forever. So you really need to make sure they stay on platform. One of the apps, and I think it's on the other platforms as well, is people don't use Kahoot enough. Kahoot is the childish trivia game, right, that your kids probably use at school. But I will tell you, using it at your virtual conference is so much fun, number one, but you can also get a lot of points across. I'll give you an example. So we would have these Kahoots, these trivia contests where we would gamify and say, okay, the top winners get this prize or get swag and all this stuff. But we would also allow for our sponsors. We would say, okay, which one of these choices in the trivia contest comes on the screen is the greatest, CRM platform on earth? And you have to pick one. But oh, by the way, every option is our sponsor. So literally every attendee has to physically click a button and say that's the greatest CRM platform on earth if they want to try to win whatever the thing is that we're giving away. And the sponsors love it. Great branding, great whatever. So these apps are not just gamification. They're helping your sponsors. They're getting engagement going, but keep them on platform always.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love what you guys are saying, especially about, the strategy, the complete strategy, Kristen, and I think you're spot on. And we've seen not only the ebb and flows, but the rip and the graveyard's getting a little bit bigger right now with platforms that didn't make it because they couldn't make it. There's something to be said, and especially with like hearing Jay and you talk about like your relationship, your partnership is truly where tech comes in as a creative strategist and says yes and not no most of the time. And you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
So like when Jay, who is super creative, and I think this is something where, even those that are trying to create digital events, they get smashed to bits where it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Your timer is going to go off in 45 minutes and it's going to, your screen's going to go dark and we can't do anything about that. Right. And so you're at a point right now where, and I think this is why you're loving where you're at right now, is because you are using your creativity and your strategy muscles to help the clients think different. Because we are in a way where not everybody can think like Jay. They can steal ideas from him, but what they need someone to feed them, not only from a tech or a capability or like a button side. They need those ideas. They need those apps. They need to say, probably someone's Googling what the hell is Kahoot right now and how am I going to use it? And then they'll stop there because they're going to say, I don't know how to use it. Yeah. So I think especially digital events, they are considered lame because there's not enough creative juices and time set to it. From a content perspective, from a design perspective, even from a speaker perspective. How many of us have been on virtual events and the speakers suck? And what do? You mute them and then you go check your email, or you have another screen and you're not tapped in, tuned in to what they're saying. And so I think that, I think technology companies in general have to step up almost like as experiential designers.
Thank you.
What, did I say that right?
No, I said thank you. I mean, okay. It's so interesting now being here at RingCentral, and we have a large events team at RingCentral, by the way, and Sarah Straw, I think, is in the chat. And we've known each other in the industry through SEMA, Corporate Event Marketing Association. But, when I came over, what's interesting is like our partnership has gotten so much closer because now they have a platform as well. But to your point, like the experiential, her and I were talking this week, like the experiential portion is so crucial. And the other big thing is, the experiential for digital events is important, but also flexibility of what you can do. Because the end of the day, the event team or marketing team is not only the ones making the decisions. The executives at organizations are saying, wait a second, can we do this? Wait a second, can we do this? So when the customer is coming to you, or the team, Jay's team, for example, I mean, he's in charge, but if you have all these people coming to you and giving ideas, you don't want those ideas to just, fall south. So I think the partnership is truly important. Creative thinking is truly important. And we're in this exciting time. This is why I'm so passionate about it. This year is the year for marketers and experiential individuals to think creatively, because technology is changing. The demographics are changing. TikTok, we talked about, those platforms are not going away anytime soon. Content is going to be the focal point of businesses moving forward with media, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
So on that note, my questions are about content, Jay. So first of all, how do you decide what content, what topics to cover? How did you figure out that 25 minutes was a good sort of time frame for sessions lasting? And third, I feel like when the sessions are too short, and they're really juicy, sometimes I feel shortchanged. So how can you, or how do you compensate for that? Do you give out the slide decks? Do you, if you even have any, do you, encourage speakers to, talk afterwards? Like, how do you make it a full featured sort of piece
Thing.
when
Yeah.
it's like you give them 10 minutes to talk and then people are like, what the, I need more.
Well, first of all, that's a great question. And I think the apps, you're not going to please everybody. Let's start with that. Okay. And if you try to please everybody, you're going to fail. And the reason I also say that is marketers need a little bit of a thick skin, right? I'll give you an example. Not that everyone should do this, but we had no on demand last year. All right. And we had a big, huge conference, no on demand. If you missed it, you missed it. Right. And I got hundreds of emails saying horrible things to me. Like, you're a horrible person. How could you have no on demand? It's not fair. It's not right. But our show up rate was through the roof. Right. And that's totally against the grain of every other virtual conference. But we wanted the energy. We wanted everybody there. It's the same thing with how long should your sessions be? We've done all this research. We do a lot in the world of email. And when you promote, for example, any type of event, let's say it's a webinar, if you promote the webinar and you say the webinar is 30 minutes long and you put that in your subject line, your headline, all of that, as compared to it being an hour webinar, we see our registration rates be through the roof, the 30-minute versus the hour, because nobody cares. Nobody wants to give you an hour of their lives. Time is the most valuable thing that we all have. And so we're like, what is the shortest session that we could possibly do and get the point across, get the information across? And we landed at 25 minutes with the 8-minute Q&A. 1 billion%, it's not long enough. It's absolutely not long enough. And there's constantly the emotion of, well, I wish that was longer. I wish there was, more of that. But what that gets them to do is to sign up for the webinar that we do a month later, to come back for the conference the year after. This feeling of I want more is a way better emotion than, wow, I just sat through all that. That sucked, right? So, but you do need the thick skin, because if you're going to try to get everyone to walk out of there saying, I feel satisfied, it was amazing, I'm complete, you will fail, okay? Because it's just not the way it works.
But so Jay, you also do something interesting though with your sponsors and their content, if I'm not mistaken, because they deliver content as downloads that are only specifically for your event.
Yeah, so we try to have a lot of stuff specific to our event. Number one, the PowerPoints and the decks are always downloadable instantly at the start of the session. So while you're sitting there, you could download it, which I know sometimes people do it after the fact. You're in it, great, download it, because sometimes you go to a session and that speaker may be boring, right? But you want to get their content. So you could download it and you go to the other concurrent session and you can go check out that speaker. So I don't think you should be afraid of sharing that deck immediately. We tried something out this year, which we're going to double down on, which was wild. We created something working with Kristen's team called Super Marketing Sweep. And so this one conference we did, Guru Conference, is an email marketing conference. A lot of email marketing software providers, all this stuff. So the idea was, how do we get our sponsors to all get their content downloaded? Everybody wanted leads and opportunities and not just branding. So we invented this idea called Super Marketing Sweep. And what we did was, in the middle of the event, we got content from all of our sponsors, like 30 different sponsors gave us a piece of content. And we said, all right, we stopped the conference for literally 5 minutes. We said, it's now Super Marketing Sweep. Go and click on this little button on the platform. And when you get there, you're going to see 30 different tiles from each of our sponsors. And you have 5 minutes to select whatever content pieces you want to download. You click, 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 kind of like the old Super Marketing Sweep thing you would see on TV when you go to the supermarket. And every time you clicked one, we donated $1 to the American Cancer Society. For every time you said, yes, I want to download. And in the span of literally 5 minutes, I think we had something like 150,000 pieces downloaded, some wacko number. It was into the stratosphere. And so you can get people to download content. And if you make the content exclusive to your event, it's another reason you got to show up, right? So we push really hard to get it. We don't always get it, but we try to get it.
Yeah. And I think you also hit the nail on the head, Jay, like when we talk about apps in regards to personalization, like you had this idea that was completely different than the norm. And how can you effectively deploy that? And I think that was super exciting that like we worked on together for sure.
Yeah, that was fun.
It was so much fun.
Before these calls, we always put together a list of questions. And then, of course, there's always the ones off the table. So I'm going to ask you a question and maybe you don't want to answer it. That's okay. You could just skip it. But I want to ask you about the revenue side of things. I noticed Guru Conference is free. You talked about donating all this money for every time they download and donating when they go. Where's all that money coming from? Where does the revenue come from? And how can, because I think a lot of organizations are like, that sounds great. There's no money to do that kind of stuff. Yeah. And everyone did free virtual stuff in 2020. And they're like, okay, well, they were paying $7.99 to come to our in-person conference. They're paying nothing for virtual. So you don't have to tell us your numbers, of course, but where do you think are the most, like the best strategies for revenue when it comes to virtual only?
Yeah.
I can tell you from my experience. So for virtual conferences specifically, what do I do? You're 100% right. My content is totally free. Our conferences are free. And when I started our conferences, I said, here's my idea. We're going to put on really large scale virtual conferences. We're going to charge for nothing whatsoever. And they're going to always be free and only virtual. And everyone's like, you're going to go out of business. And I go, okay, we'll see what happens. And people said, nobody wants to sponsor a free event. And I said, okay, we'll see. People want the audience, right? People want to reach the audience. So what we do is we make sure that our sponsorships are not just about branding. Branding is almost irrelevant in our sponsorships. We try to make it so that there's always leads being generated, opportunities being created. I'll give you an example. If you go in the Reg path for, let's say, Guru Conference right now, you will, at the end of the Reg path, you will see questions, custom questions from different sponsors of ours. And they're very actionable. Do you want to get a demo of this? Do you want to try that? Those are really, really, really valuable leads for those sponsors. And so we try to insert real opportunities for our sponsors. The thing I would say to everybody is, if you're thinking about charging, people say to me, well, you should charge for the on-demand. And if you take a step back and you say, okay, let's say I charge for on-demand, and let's say we got, $100,000 in revenue from the on-demand. Is that $100,000 worth it to me, or is it better to expand our audience by 10,000 more people by keeping everything free, and those 10,000 people can turn into these other revenue opportunities? So I think a lot of times when you put on virtual events, whoever's hosting them is short-sighted and they're charging for things because they think they're supposed to. But if you look at kind of the revenue implications, I think you're better off creating audience than you are just getting small buckets of dollars.
Yep. That's so very cool. I also think that the success point of Guru Conference last year, Jay, was you in a terry cloth bandana doing a hot wing competition, which you very, very strategically placed on the last day of the conference.
Yeah.
And the conference was what, 3 days?
It was two full days, two full day virtual conference. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So tell us about that. Was that well received and well?
Yes. So I'll tell you, you need it. If you're going to do a virtual event, I don't care, it's free, paid, whatever, you need an anchor at the end of each day. You have to keep bringing people back or it's going to be dead. So the anchor on day one, we had the cast, some of the cast from Love is Blind, from last season's Love is Blind. This year's crazy, by the way. But we had the cast there live, had nothing to do with email marketing, and you were able to do live Q&A. And that was crazy on day one. And then on day two, we did a live hot wing challenge where we got the hot sauce and we ate it live. And I should have been sponsored by Depends because it was a rough night for me. It was terrible.
That's why it was the last thing.
But you need an anchor.
I have a picture of the screen of Jay and Stanya and Nancy. And Jay is like, oh my God, I'm so hot. I don't know what's going on. And everybody was thousands of people in the chat were just like cheering one person over the other. It was
It was
fabulous.
It was
I remember
rough
in
day.
well during the Corona, it was epic. I have a lot of screenshots of
Oh,
the
thank God.
conference.
We should
But,
do that.
Really
Recreate
happy
it.
about that.
We should all recreate it at a inbound this year. How about
Oh,
that?
that would be hilarious. So
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it.
I'm
well, you
in.
have something in
I'm all
store
in.
for this year too, which I think is epic as well. But the whole idea of
Oh,
the anchors, you
crazy.
need that. You need the power sessions in the beginning.
Uh-oh.
You need, I mean, we say
lost
it for
Dahlia.
huh?
Oh, you're back.
Oh,
maybe
sorry.
you lost me. I couldn't hear you.
Oh, sorry. I said we need the anchors. We also need, that power session, that power speaker, power content in the beginning and in the end of the day.
Yes.
Like even at face-to-face, meetings right now, the word plenary gives me hives. And me trying to go into a very dark room and, the speaker's this big, I'm like, no, thank you. Like, not anymore. And it's going to be 90 minutes of me trying to drink coffee to stay awake. So I love the idea of it's action, it's fun, it's edutainment, as you say. I don't know. I think Depends should sponsor, but so it's potential sponsorships as well. So going forward in 2024, if we go through this whole roller coaster again, and you see these amazing virtual events, digital events coming to life again, what can be done different this time so that there is no fatigue than the last time?
Jay, you go first.
Kristen, you want to go first? You want me to go?
Oh my God. It's like Serena and Venus here. Come on.
Tag, you're first.
Okay. So I'll tell you some things that we are doing to get that worked well for us that I was surprised about last year that we're going to do more of, which is a lot of times our marketing is focused on getting people to register and all that type of stuff. We found that you do retargeting, right? You serve the ads to people trying to get them to register. We actually found that if we kept our retargeting going for people that already registered, which sounds counterintuitive, right? Somebody already registered. Normally you take them out of your retargeting because now they registered and you're trying to hit other people. We found that retargeting, we actually found out by accident, hitting people with the ads about the event after they have already registered continuously all the way until the event increased our show up rate from those people exponentially because they felt like they were seeing it everywhere and they were excited to be a part of it. So don't stop your aggressive marketing once somebody has registered, because we found it to be like kind of a secret sauce thing to get people to be excited. And that's a whole thing about creating the excitement. The other piece is turn your speakers into micro influencers. It is a stage for them to speak. You're giving them a platform. Make them in their contract, their speaker contracts, they'll share it 3 times on LinkedIn. They're going to put it in their newsletter that they are required to do that. Turn your speakers into micro influencers because it can change everything. So that's some of the things that we're working on.
Oh, I'm piggybacking. This is why I wanted you to go first, because I had a suspicion of what you were going to say. So what I'm excited about is within digital, beyond what we just talked about shorter sessions and all the creative juices, is the influence of artificial intelligence. And I know we're getting so much spam right now around that, and I can't stand it, but I'm so excited about the complementariness of, that's not even a word, but the complementary pieces of AI in events. It's not going to replace the creative juices of what we do. It's going to enhance it. And with what Jay just mentioned regarding us turning your speakers and micro influencers, imagine your speakers after an event, they have their snippets that they can share on social media, just like this that we're talking about right now. I want to share it because this was a great session. And I want my followers and all of my customers to see this session because we had a great conversation. Why can't that happen after every event where you're generating an AI clip and that you can share it on social? And it's not just the organizer, it's the speaker. Right. Because the more people amplify the message and complement the experience, the better your event will amplify and you're going to expand your reach. So I'm just really excited about what artificial intelligence is going to do to our industry. I think I'm the one that's like reading everything that I can, but I think that's going to take it to the next level for speakers and organizers.
I love it. I think you're spot on.
Before we let you guys go, what the fuck is with emoticons?
You don't know.
They help? Do they hurt? Do people care? Is it entertainment? I don't understand.
Anything to stand out, anything that's different is a win. All right.
Okay.
Stand out for the win. And you
Yeah.
know what? You have to always be like, you have to separate yourself from stuff. When you go down the path of, well, I don't like it, so we're not going to do it, whether that's a subject line you're writing or any other thing, that's probably the first thing you should try, because you can't allow your own being to kind of like dictate all things. And that's what I found, because I have no idea what is good or bad.
Same, Jay. I feel like we
But
can
at
talk.
least you guys are trying things out.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
doing things. You know, it might not work.
It's not like others where they're like, oh, yes, we'll try it out. But no, let's go back to the playbook that is 5-7 years old. We
No.
can't do that anymore. Well, I think this has been a kick-ass conversation. And, you know, with all our geniuses in the audience, tell us what you think, and we will share snippets of this. I promise both of you this. And but thank you, Jay. Thank you, Kristen, for being with us. This has been truly, truly amazing. Thank you, our geniuses, for being with us as well. Michelle and Liz, we are going to have another other session next week, which is all let me think. We have our dear friend Leanne Velke with us.
Yay.
And we are going to be talking about crappy registration and how we can make it better. And so I know a lot of people will want to be part of that conversation. But thank you again. And we hope you have a wonderful weekend, and see you next time.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
Thanks,
Reese
everybody.
Central.
Yeah, thank you so much
for giving us Kristen.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us sponsor, Dahlia, and thank you, Jay, for joining us. You have my
Pleasure.
former customer, Leanne, next week. I'm excited to tune in for that, but we can't thank you enough, and appreciate all the partnership that we had today.
We love
And
you
connect
guys.
with me on LinkedIn and all that stuff.
Connect with
Yes.
me.
And sign up for Guru. Actually, sign up for all the emails, because they kick
All the
ass. They
things.
really, really do. So
Appreciate y'all.
awesome. All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.